Okay, I'd like to extend a welcome to all the members of the council, staff and members of the public to this meeting. I'd like to start with a karakia. Just a reminder that the meeting has been recorded and live streamed to Council's YouTube channel. Just want you to note that item 5.8, the establishment of the Mangakino Pouakanu Community Grants Distribution Committee, has been withdrawn. No decision has been made yet about the future of the local representation committees or whether it might change to informal council connect forums. Before any decision is made, the community will have a chance to share their views. Council is likely to consider this in February 2026. We'll move on to item 2, apologies. There are no apologies. So we'll move on to item 3, conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest? Register a conflict of interest with regards to an item in the confidential section with regards to Taupō Airport, and I'll just withdraw from participating in that. Steve, Councillor Ananui.
Just want to acknowledge a conflict of interest in the confidential meeting as well, in and around the WHL approval.
Thank you, Councillor. Item 4.1, confirmation of the minutes of the meeting held the 25th of November. Are there any amendments to those minutes? Being no amendments, there is a recommendation on the screen there. Can I have a mover and a seconder?
I'm happy to move.
Councillor moved it, so a seconder? Councillor Foreman. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Item 5.1, public forum. This is a standing item on the agenda, and we have 2 speakers today that have registered to speak. You have 5 minutes each. And Margaret, are you going to start? You can choose, you don't need to if you want to. If you just move up to the microphone there. Just press the button on the right-hand side.
Tēnā koutou katoa. I'm speaking as chairperson on behalf of the Pukawa Property Owners Association, the PPOA, regarding the dissolution of our Tongariro Representative Committee. We are very disappointed at the apparent loss of our direct voice to Council. This Council's programme for the next year shows no mention of anything resembling a Tongariro committee, and I see no budget allocation with which to make one. Yes, we have Sandra, who represents us very well, but she is just one voice, which is often drowned in this Taupō-centric council. You are surely aware that during the recent district council elections, the voter turnout for the Turangi-Tongariro ward was one of, if not the highest, in the country. There was a reason for this unprecedented turnout. Our communities were not happy with the status quo and voted for change. We were hoping for a council that was prepared to come and get to know us and understand that our needs are not necessarily the same as the needs of urban Taupō. Neither are we part of Turangi. We are one of many small, diverse communities around the lake with our own identities, traditions, cultures and needs, and expect these to be embraced and supported by our council. We are not Taupō Town. We do not want the same park benches. We want to keep our own family-funded, maintained benches. Although I had to smile and shake my head recently when I heard Pukawa being held up as the poster child regarding a lack of litter. Some years ago, we fought hard not to have litter bins. Bins attract nappies and mattresses. However, when holding us up, council failed to acknowledge our historical fight or the Pukawa locals who always carry a bread bag to pick up the litter that is actually left. Pukawa is not kept tidy by the unruly visitors, but rather the long-suffering residents. Maybe the Tongariro Forum wasn't particularly user-friendly for our communities, but it would have been better to sit down with us and develop a format that would have worked for us. To substitute with something akin to a coffee morning is an insult. By removing the Tongariro Forum altogether, you are just sidelining us just yet again. As members of the Taupō region, we contribute a significant chunk to your rates income, yet you appear to have little appetite to engage with us to understand our needs. When I spoke at the Weedabing consultation, I asked the assembled councillors, probably some of you, how many of you have actually visited Pukawa? Other than Sandra, just one hand was raised. Well, here and now, I invite every one of you to come to Pukawa. Just let me know when you're coming and I'll put the kettle on. Nō reira. More specifically, I invite all of you to our AGM at the Areti Village conference room on January the 2nd at 9:30 a.m. I'm not asking you to speak, unless you really want to. Sandra will be there and she will be speaking. I just ask you to come and listen to get an understanding of how we roll at that far distant end of the lake. Ngā mihi. Happy to take questions.
Have any of the members got any questions of Margaret? Kevin.
Well, thanks, Margaret. Appreciate your coming in today. You've made some good points here. Are you happy to leave a copy of your submission today so we can refer to it? I just don't want to forget what you have said to us, so thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other questions? Councillor Cameron.
Thank you. Are you aware that the intention is to go out and consult specifically with the communities and potentially involve more elected members for your representation?
No, I wasn't aware of that. No.
Question. Through the chair. Thanks, Margaret. Nice to meet you. Are you also aware that there's been no decision to date by councillors to disestablish either of the community rep groups?
I believe there's no decision been taken, but it's under discussion, and our feeling was that they were going to be.
Thank you for that, Margaret. Is there any further questions?
Yes, through the chair. Hi, Margaret.
Hi.
Thank you. I don't actually have a question. I just want to say thank you for coming in and sharing with us today and extending that invitation.
Margaret, likewise, I'd like to thank you for
you.
travelling this distance. I have been to Pukawa and I will
Okay.
intend to get there in the future. Thank you
Okay.
for your invitation. It's just at the moment
All
there's a
right.
fair bit's been happening.
And just let me
But-
know when you're coming, and I'll put the kettle on. Okay.
We will do. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ari Granger, do you want to step up and present your paper?
Can you all hear me? Okay, good afternoon. I'm Nari Granger, and I have been on the Tongariro representative group. So I did send you all an email, and really I just want to reiterate what I said in that if you remove the Tongariro representative group, there will be nobody representing the southern areas of the lake, western side, or the around Turangi Township. There's a group for the Turangi Township called Turangi Mana Whakahono Co-Governance Committee, and they work in partnership with the Ngāti Turangi Tukua Charitable Trust. The Tongariro representative group represents 8 different hapu that are outside of the Turangi Township, and also the areas of Whareroa, Morikuratau, Pikawa, Waihi, Takanu, Rotoara, Korohi and Motuopa, Tauranga Taupo and Hātipi settlements. And it's an important forum for these communities to bring concerns to councillors and staff. While I understand the idea of having community forums and having staff come out and engage with the communities, a lot of people feel very uncomfortable actually speaking up in public, but they do feel comfortable to pick up the phone and ring one of their representatives and ask them to bring it to the committee. The 2 committees were established to be equal representation of the Turangi-Tongariro ward, and this never happened. The representative group was never attended by the mayor. We have a new one now. Meeting dates were changed regularly, and that meant the group met less and less. And Councillor Greenslade was also on other committees, and often their meetings, which were organised by council staff, were on the same day. So she had a conflict of interest of where she was to go. And I really feel that if we're going to continue with the Tongariro representative group, that her time for that needs to be dedicated for that, not, oh, well, we can push that aside, because that was very much how it felt. And I, for one, I had it all in my diary, and I was, I'd be making arrangements because and suddenly the meetings changed. People need to know where they are in their daily lives. Sandra is one councillor who represents 24% of the ratepayers in the whole Turangi, Taupo District Council area. And we have 2 committees established to provide the representation. One of them represents 1,400 people of the 3,700 people being represented. So we need to have a balanced structure for people's voices to be heard. As Margaret said, the local elections, our area was the biggest turnout in New Zealand, and that should have told everybody that people down our end of the lake were not happy with what was going on, and now you're talking about disestablishing our only way of communicating with the council, our only formal way of doing it. You know, community forums are very good, but they don't keep minutes, and there's no actual follow-up really of a lot of things that are discussed at those meetings. And I feel it's really important that we have a formal structure where there is minutes and responsibilities given to people to follow things up and come back with the right with answers. I think it's great if you want to send people down to have the public forums. I think that's really good. There's not a huge take-up of a lot of them, but I still think it's good to do, and people can't say, well, we haven't had the opportunity, but I do think we need to keep a formal, structured group as well. And as Margaret said, Councillor Greenslade works tirelessly for us. She does a wonderful job, but she's one voice amongst a council that is all very Taupo orientated. Thank you for listening to me this afternoon. Any
Thank you, Nora,
questions?
for taking the time to travel here. You happy to answer any questions? Councillor Campbell.
Yes, hello. I'll just comment actually about, you mentioned the 25% representation of the district. That's interesting because unfortunately the representation at this table is not based actually on ratepayers. It's based on if they register to vote in local government, and unfortunately, in the local government elections, and unfortunately only a small proportion of batch owners, holiday home owners in this district register to vote in local body elections. So if that's going to change, they've got to, if you want to get more people, councillors at this table anyway, that is a way to make that happen.
Well, actually, we worked very hard, Margaret and I and others, to get a lot of the batch owners on side, and a lot of them did vote in this election, and that was reflected in the high turnout of numbers. So people do care about what's happening there. They might only come for a holiday, but they do care about what is going on in the area.
Oh, well, we're having this representation review next year, I think, and if enough of them put in their votes this latest election, who knows, you might get another councillor.
Well, let's hope, yes.
Councillor Murch.
Yeah, thanks, Nairi. Hi. You mentioned that you had one voice among the councillors who encompasses the Turangi-Tongariro and kind of represents that side of the lake. My question is, are you aware that you now have two councillors sitting at this table? Councillor Foreman also belongs to the southern end of the lake, and do you think it would be beneficial for Councillor Greenslade and Councillor Foreman to work together?
I can't see that it would hurt. The thing is that Councillor Foreman is not actually elected as our representative, but if she wants to come along and certainly help with things, then yes. I think the more of you who understand what's going on down there, and as Margaret said, come down, come and see us. I'm always usually around, and you're welcome.
And I guess the same question to you is, are you aware that we are coming out to consult, not to get rid of representation, but to enhance what's there and perhaps improve representation by potentially having more councillors come down on a regular basis for that purpose? Were you aware of that?
Only from what I've read, yes.
Right.
Councillor Foreman.
Kia ora. As the person that does live down there, I must say both Wahine and I, as Māori ward councillors, actually cover the whole district. But because I am down at the southern end, living in Turangi, pretty much have grown up down there, often at Pukawa and around the bays. I am more than happy for you to reach out to me. I've tried to get to several of your different hui, but they have clashed with other commitments at the maraes and various Māori hui. So as a Māori councillor, I've prioritised those. But I will try and at least get to the Pukawa one, as long as you are happy for me to be there.
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Councillor Woodward.
Thank you. I just wanted to say thank you for coming in and speaking today. It's obviously a very important matter for you guys, so just appreciate you coming in. Thank you.
Nori, thank you very much for coming this way to talk to us. We have a motion on the screen that we receive comments from the members of the public. Would someone like to move that? Councillor Cameron, seconder. Councillor Foreman. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Moving on to item 5.2, reclassification of the Kinloch Reserve. I'd like to invite Billy B to the table to make a presentation. Welcome, Billy.
Through the chair, did you want the submitter to speak first?
Yeah, I'm sorry, I've actually got this wrong. So Sarah is is Sarah here, or are we doing that online?
I'm online.
Sarah, welcome. Do you want to go ahead with your submission?
Thank you. Yes. Can everyone hear me at your end?
Loud and clear, just go ahead.
Fabulous. So I'm Sarah Matthews. I am one of the property owners of 1 Sparrowhawk Way, which is a residential property that sits directly overlooks the Loch Eagles Rise Recreational Reserve. And I oppose the reclassification of the reserve to local purpose and oppose the proposed construction of the water reservoir there. This development would significantly disrupt the natural character of the area, partially obscure views of Lake Taupō, the very reason that we purchased our property and the very reason that so many people love that reserve. And it would certainly impact the nature and character of that reserve area that the community loves. I want to run through a couple of key points on this. So first off, the site is currently designated a recreation reserve. The legal purpose of that classification is to provide for recreation, protect the natural environment, preserve the open space and beauty of the area. So the proposed construction of a water reservoir is fundamentally inconsistent with that purpose, and represents a significant departure from the intended use of the land and would undermine the values that the reserve was created to protect. The community has a right to expect that such legal protections, the classification as a reserve, will be upheld. And we're quite concerned that the reclassification of even part of the Loch Eagles Rise Reserve will open the door for future reclassification of further reserve areas in Kinloch. Even now, with part of that reserve being reclassified to local purpose, my understanding is that council would then be able to carry out further developments on that reclassified reserve carte blanche without full public consultation now that it's being reclassified. We think that if council reclassifies part of the reserve, that council should provide replacement reserve classified land to the community that's in close proximity to the lands being taken, so that the community isn't disadvantaged by the reclassification. Number 2, environmental impacts. So the reserve contains some native trees, home to native birds, insects and other wildlife. Removal of trees and vegetation, soil disruption and increased human activity would inevitably disturb the habitat and reduce the ecological value of the reserve, regardless of whether council relocates a tree or two. We ask whether a full environmental reserves reclassified anyway. Even if the water reservoir doesn't go ahead, there's a real risk that future development could be undertaken on the newly classified land without proper guardrails in place. Number 3, cultural considerations and iwi engagement. So Kinloch and Lake Taupō are part of the rohe of Ngāti Wharetoa, for whom the lake and surrounding lands are of immense cultural and spiritual significance. Maori worldview principles, so kaitiakitanga, Māori, mana whenua, must be respected in any proposal involving land use change, especially one of this nature. We question whether council has fully consulted with the relevant hapu and whether their views have been folded in with this reclassification of the reserve or not. This engagement with iwi must be undertaken before any decisions are finalised in line with obligations under Te Tere o Waitangi. Point number 4, so disruption to visual landscape and community character. Kinloch's known for its quiet, natural setting, sweeping views of the lake, surrounding hills. The proposed water reservoir would intrude on the skyline and permanently alter the scenic quality of the area up around Loch Eagles Reserve. For homeowners directly facing the reserve, ours included, it would partially block our lake views and impose an industrial scale feature in a place that's always been celebrated for natural tranquility. The Loch Eagles Rise Reserve is the only accessible lookout from height in Kinloch. So as a community with a high incidence of elderly people, possibly less mobile.
Sarah, could I just interrupt there? You were given 5 minutes and your 5 minutes is up. So you want to just summarise what else you'd like to say or what you have said?
Okay, perfect. Sorry, I didn't realise I had a time limit. Yeah, so I've covered some of my key points. We oppose it. We think that full impact assessments haven't been taken out. We think it's a slippery slope if the council reclassifies it. What else might they put there? There's a large impact on the nearby residents. Our people could be up for hundreds of thousands of dollars loss in property values with this in place. Seven Oaks is making a lot of money on the other side of the hill and should be supplying land or supplying money to pick a area to put this reservoir in that doesn't impact on local residents as much as this site does. Yes, that's a brief summary.
Sarah, we have read your submission. It was very extensive and well done. Have the members got any questions of Sarah? Councillor Campbell.
Hello, Sarah. I'll just one question of mine. I'll just focus on one aspect of the submission, really, and then that's the visual amenity, the adverse effects on the visual amenity that I think is one thing you're claiming, and certainly from at the same elevation or higher, I couldn't quite see how that would be the case because the plans show that the reservoir would be, the top of it would be at the same level as the car park. So I must admit my hesitation to understand that aspect. Certainly from a lower elevation, lower down I can see, it would look different from the bush. Arguably that's not affecting lake views, but am I missing something here?
So first off, we have been provided with some plans, obviously not final plans, so there is a risk that those plans change. Secondly, if you keep the reservoir the same height as the car park, that's probably fine if you're standing right at the car park, but that reservoir will extend out another, 10, 15 metres. So over here, that's where you're losing your lake view and your bush view and everything like that. Here, sure, same height as the car park, no change right there, but as you're looking out further, that's when you're losing views here.
Thank you for that explanation there, Councillor Woodward.
Thank you. Thank you, Sarah, for your submission. I just wanted to ask if you feel like the engagement done on this item was enough for the Kinloch community.
Look, I think there has been really good attempts to engage with the community. We've had a couple of Skypes and interactions with different people from council, so that's been great. I think there's a question as to whether this is already a foregone conclusion or not, whether council is acting in their best interests versus the entire community's best interests. But I think certainly council has yes, very much tried to engage with the community, and that's much appreciated, and that's why we're here engaging back.
Thank you, Sarah. It's appreciated the effort you have put in there. Thank you for being here today and making the submission. Billy, you've got another submission to make on behalf of someone else? Do you want to proceed with that?
Through the chair, your worship, elected members, thank you for having me this afternoon. For those who I haven't met, my name is Billy V. I'm the Reserves Advisor with the Parks and Reserves team. So I'm here to present the deliberation report for the proposed reclassification of Recreation Reserve in Kinloch. So for our new elected members, you would have come across two processes I refer to in the agenda: classification and vesting. So there are various types of reserve classifications, recreation being a common one across the district. So classifications permit certain activities on reserves, but it also guides council about how we manage the reserve in trust for the public. The subject reserve is currently classified as recreation, and this process that we've been through is to potentially reclassify the reserve to local purpose utility for the purpose of constructing the water reservoir. So vesting is a process where our developers transfer land ownership to council as a development contribution to hold in trust for the public as a reserve. So through this vesting process, that's where you'd get the classification identified, and council obtained this land from the developer through this vesting process. So at the 31st of July 2025 council meeting, I presented an agenda item requesting elected members consider classifying or reclassifying part of the subject reserve in Kinloch from recreation to local purpose utility. The lack of water resiliency in Kinloch has been an ongoing issue, with current water storages at 6 hours forecast peak flow. A new water reservoir is expected to provide 24 hours of water storage for the lower Kinloch residential area. This project has been identified in the Waters Asset Management Plan and the 2021 long-term plan. Alternative land options were considered before the subject reserve, but securing land has been an ongoing issue for our project team, as the reservoir must be built at a specific elevation to ensure properties are gravity fed. We did conduct a vegetation assessment prior to the July council meeting, which identified a mix of exotic and native species estimated to be planted 15 to 20 years ago within the proposed reclassified area. This vegetation is not accessible anyway by the public, so it would not be a loss of recreational value. However, we expect the walking track on the recreation reserve will require a switchback to cater to the construction of the reservoir, but this is thought to be minor and can be mitigated with additional planting. To mitigate the loss of vegetation, it's recommended some desired native species be translocated to other areas of the reserve and infill the surrounding reservoir post-construction with more desirable species. Our community engagement team took the time to conduct some engagement with directly impacted neighbours of the reserve. The report is shown as attachment 3. Now, you're not legally required to consider this report when making your decision under section 119 and 120 of the Reserves Act, but it is a way for council officers to receive feedback from these residents should they not submit during the consultation period. But as you would have seen, we received 12 submissions, 7 supporting and 5 opposing, with 1 submission requesting to be heard. I'll leave it at that, but I'm happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Councillor Hope. Councillor Mert, sorry.
Thanks, Billy V. I just had a question around the engagements undertaken with iwi and hapu. What did that look like, and what was hapu appetite to proceed with the erection of the water facility?
Through the Chair, thank you for your question. So I was advised by our iwi co-governance team to get in contact with Craig Ahipene, who represents Mokai Marae. So had that discussion with him, who he took it back to his elders about the plan to reclassify the land and potentially build the reservoir, and there were no objections. The Parks and Reserve team have monthly hui with Trust Board about operational things, and I did raise the matter with them, had a quick kōrero. There was no opposition from our conversations, but I did urge them to submit if they were opposed to the agenda item.
Councillor Foreman.
Kia ora. Just one question, and it kind of goes back to what Sarah asked as well. Should the reserve progress in this area, will an environmental impact report be done as part of the project, or has it already been done?
Through the chair, so the environmental impact assessment form is typically done when we do a resource consent. So I expect that should elected members agree to reclassify the reserve, the project team will have to go through that process there. Thank you.
Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, hi, Billy. We've just got two questions. One is your first option, Department of Conservation land at the end of Boojum Dell. Yeah, I mean, when I looked at, I see the explanation here, but when I looked at an aerial picture, it's yeah, well, that would have seemed to be the most obvious place because it's out of the way, out of mind, out of sight. It's high up. Just building a second reservoir near or thereabouts would have seemed to make the most obvious sense. But I'm just interested. I mean, there's a brief explanation. Can you flesh it out a little bit?
Through the chair, so you're referring to the background where I mentioned
Yes.
the pipe work on Waihi Tapu and it's been decommissioned, so you want additional?
Well, yeah, I mean, it seems like, well, there's a reservoir there now. You build one next to it or near it. You put some extra pipes near it. But that didn't seem to gel.
Through the chair, do you mind if I invite Tom Swindells to answer this question?
Please proceed.
Good afternoon, Your Worship. Good afternoon, councillors. Yeah, so the Boojum Dell site is, for one, it is a Waihi Tapu site, or very close to. So, from discussions with Mokai Marae, they're very keen to see no more work in that area. And it's also highly, like a very steep terrain. So there is a small platform area where our current reservoir is located. And over the last 10 years, we've had to build a couple of quite expensive retaining walls on the access track where sort of slippage of it has occurred. So obviously, from an engineering perspective, we could build something there, but getting further approvals from the marae would be challenging, and it is dock land, so we'd have to go to dock, who would require us as well to have further marae approval. So it's a very challenging site to do more work there.
Oh, okay. No, that's good. And just my other question, it's just not to do with this the Boojum Dell site, but okay, say we build the reservoir where we're proposing to build. There's concerns about visual impact and everything. I mean, you can't. It would be an idea to paint it, not just leave it concrete. I mean, is there anything in the pipeline? Any ideas? Artwork, local artwork, anything?
Through the chair, the design features can be consulted with the public at a later date, definitely.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you for the work you've done in preparing this. It's really appreciated. We have a recommendation on the screen. I'd like to have a movement for that recommendation. Councillor Cameron, is there a seconder for that? Councillor Delatour. Now we're open for debate. Are there any issues that anyone wants to debate on that before we put it to the vote? Councillor Campbell.
Well, through the chair, just to throw my 2 cents in, I appreciate what some of the objectors say, but yeah, I suppose I don't totally buy the severe not those words were used, but compromised to visual amenity for any of the surrounding properties. I mean, it's nicer to looking at a bit of bush, understandably, but it does slightly, and I'm saying because the top of the reservoir is planned to be more or less level with the car park, and it's existing. It's an existing lookout area anyway. I don't see that attracting any more attention than that, but and it slightly changes the terrain. But yeah, I mean, that's just my point of view. I don't totally appreciate the absolute compromise to visual amenity. That's clearly some of the submitters do feel, but anyway, that's my 2 cents on that aspect of it anyway.
Thank you, Your Worship. Look, I have some sympathy for Ms Matthews, who has appeared, and I thank you for her submission today. I'm just wondering, in terms of the overall finishing work to the project, on the understanding we put it there, my understanding reading this paper is this reservoir will virtually disappear into the bush once it's re-established, and will become a part of the landscape rather than sticking out of the landscape. So while I have some sympathy, my reading this paper is most of those concerns, as I read the paper, will be alleviated through the project, is my take on it.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Is there any other debate on this? Councillor Murch.
Yeah, I think when we think of it from the perspective of the Kinloch community and them requiring 24 hours of water storage, them not having that at the moment is quite heavy in terms of the Kinloch community. But if I were just to go back and some of the concerns raised throughout Ms Matthews's submission, also the impacts that came through in the paper, particularly the environmental and cultural concerns. For me, if we think about the vegetation, specifically the natives, and the suggestion of picking them up, uplifting them and transferring them to another part of the reserve, so long as we can satisfy that once we do that, that vegetation is going to live and thrive. So when we think about the taiao and the implications that this might have on the taiao, so long as we are doing everything that we can to retain our taiao and the native species that might have created a habitat there, I can kind of balance out with the fact that the Kinloch community need water, and also what's the alternative if we don't push this through.
Councillor Cameron.
Thank you, through the chair. I note that this particular piece of land was acquired as a development contribution, and development contributions are collected by the council to allow for future growth. So I'm actually comfortable that this is meeting those obligations, and as we've pointed out, we've tried very hard to find a location. This is by far the best location, and it does in fact, in my opinion, benefit the entire Kinloch area. I'm in favour, and that's why I was happy to move.
Billy, would you mind just returning and answering for Councillor Murch?
Through the chair, Councillor, thank you for that. So our environmental advisor, she's a well-educated young woman who also worked as an ecologist in Gisborne. So it was her it was her recommendation, it was an idea, and because the current vegetation there is still quite young, 15 to 20 years old, we do believe that it could flourish in other areas, especially where the car park is. We think there could be more vegetation there. But from a parks and reserves point of view, we are never in favour of losing recreation reserve for the public. So we would be pushing from our point of view that this is a re-established vegetative site that could cover the reservoir. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy, to you and your team for all the work in here. If there's no further questions, we'll put the motion to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Moving on to item 5.3, adoption of the annual report. I'd like to welcome Sarah Matthews to the presentation table.
Kia ora tātou. I seem to have lost my friends, and I am not Jeanette. So if at any time you have questions that I can't answer, I probably wanted to just disclaim the fact that I'm presenting on behalf of Jeanette today. But we are lucky enough to have our auditors online as well. I can see Leon and I can see Carter. So they will also be helpful while we make this presentation. So look, it is a very long report, and I appreciate, there's a couple of 100 pages here. Probably the main things to cover, there have been a couple of changes post what you see here today. Now, we had a look through those, and the majority of those are minor and or editorial, so nothing major to mention, with the exception of Mayor John needing to sign the statement of compliance rather than it actually had Mayor Trueva's name on it, which was incorrect. Also of note, because we knew we were disestablishing the Risk and Assurance Committee at the end of the triennium, we did delegate Bruce Robertson to have a look at this. The Risk and Assurance Committee normally approve this for council, recommend adoption to council for approval. Bruce Robertson has given his clearance via email, and while he wasn't able to make it today, he did want us to pass on that he was comfortable with the annual report. Also, just really the only other thing I want to mention is this year new to council is this report to the council, which has been provided to you, albeit a little bit later. But I found that is quite a helpful report from our auditors to talk through the issues and probably some of the main areas of note, and also some of the outcomes of the audit. So I, unlike some of my peers around the country, actually really happy with that report, and I think it's a really fair representation of how we've got here today. So I through the chair, I would like to pass on to Leon to make any comments he wishes to make up front, and then if not, I'll ask for questions.
Leon, welcome online here. Thank you for the work you've done. Have you got anything you can add to that to reassure me, seeing it's my signature that's going to be on this document? What I understand, and from Bruce's report, everyone is happy, and I guess we just want reassurance from you that you gentlemen are as happy as well.
Kia ora, Your Worship, tēnā koutou katoa, councillors. Apologies that we can't be there in person. They haven't managed to clone me yet. I'm supposed to be at another adoption meeting a bit later, so my sincere apologies for not being in person, and thank you for allowing us to attend via Teams. I think everything I want to say is in the report that's been provided to you, also in my audit report, and I think Sarah has summed up the whole story of the audit already very well. So overall, we're comfortable, and we issue an unqualified audit opinion on the financial statements as well as most of the performance measures. There are just a few where we struggle, as in the past, to get insufficient audit evidence to support your report. We're not saying your results are wrong or right. We're saying we don't have the audit evidence. So that's the only thing that I should mention to you.
Thank you for that, Leon. We have a recommendation on the screen. I'd like to get a mover for that. We accept that recommendation.
Through the chair, can I just make a couple of comments?
No, we want to move it first and a second, then we go back into debate. Okay. So moved by Councillor Westman, seconded Councillor Taylor. We're now into debate. Councillor Campbell, if you want to ask a question.
Yeah, they're not really questions, just comments really, because they are mentioned in this summarisation. I thought I'd mention it. Just with regards to the strategic water management, I just want to point out my former objection to the water services in-house model on the basis of transparency and accountability. That is not to say that these things of transparency and accountability of this council cannot be improved in the next few years, and I hope it can. But my otherwise suggestion was for a well-designed CEO. And just secondly and finally, financial stewardship. Just pointing out my dissatisfaction with the current delegated authority arrangements, which I feel do not enable sufficient scrutiny of the spending going on, particularly infrastructure, and wish to inform, if anybody wasn't aware, that these delegated authorities are being reviewed very soon.
Sarah or Leon, do you?
Sorry, could I just clarify a well-designed CEO? I take a bit of offence to that comment in regards to our CEO. You said no. You said CEO.
Sorry, my apologies. Yes, so I was not inferring that our CEO needs redesigning. No, sorry, the CCO, Council-Controlled Organisation.
Through the chair. Sorry, just respectfully answering those. That there wasn't really a question in there in relation to the annual report. It was more opinion. So just my lack of responses because that was a question.
Point taken on that. So, Councillor Leonard.
How long has Audit New Zealand been our auditors for the Taupō District Council?
I don't know. Your Worship, may I answer that?
Please do.
Thank you. Councillor, I don't know, but I've been around for about 6 years. Before that, a colleague of mine at least 6 years. So I'd say anything between 20 odd years.
Thank you.
I think we could rest assured you know what you're doing. Are there any further questions?
Just one from me.
Councillor Taylor.
Just through the chair. It's more addressed to Leon. Thank you and your team for the audit. I read through your report and I note that the qualified opinion is on lack of data around response to water breakages and the like. But I think our community can have a degree of confidence based on your report, a thorough and lengthy read, so thank you for that. And sorry to Sarah and her team for the work they've done as well.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor.
Pass that on to my team. Thank you.
Councillor Cameron.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. Look, the annual report is the ultimate accountability report for Council. It itemises what we set out to achieve, and it identifies what we did achieve, and also it identifies the challenges that we faced. It's a big read, and I'm not suggesting everybody is going to want to go out there and read all 200 odd pages, but once it's approved, I assume it will be on the website for public consumption.
Through the chair, we publish it pretty quickly post this meeting, and it's already in obviously the agenda for today. But yes, we do publish it on our website.
Are there any other points of clarification? If not, we have a mover and a seconder. I'd like to put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Carried. We're moving on to item 5.4, revocation of reserve status of local purpose reserve. Stormwater and transfer to adjoining owner, Section 24 of the Reserves Act 1977. Billy, good to see you there, and Nigel.
Through the chair, your worship, elected members, thank you. I'm here with Nigel, obviously here to present this agenda item on behalf of my colleague Karen Holman, who couldn't be here today. So in my previous agenda, I mentioned the process of vesting. So this applies in this situation as well. So in March 2025, the subject land was vested in Taupō District Council as a local purpose stormwater reserve for overland stormwater flow purposes. So once the process of vesting the reserve concluded, the developer unintentionally built a retaining wall that encroaches onto the stormwater reserve. Once the error was identified, council staff were informed. It's 19 square metres of the retaining wall occupies the reserve, and council officers and the developer believe revoking the reserve status and transferring ownership back to the developer is the most cost-effective and tidiest way to resolve the issue. Fortunately, discussions with the stormwater asset manager identified there are no stormwater assets or infrastructure on the reserve, and the retaining wall doesn't affect the function of the stormwater reserve. So this process, revoking a reserve, requires a decision from our elected members and to transfer the 19 square metres to the developer. Public consultation is not required in this scenario as per section 24 of the Reserves Act 1977. I'd like to quickly point out there is a typo in the options. It says option 1, 3 and 4. Obviously 1, 2 and 3 should be the correct order, but the recommendation provided by my colleague is reflected as option 4 in the options section of the agenda. I will endeavour to answer what I can, but I have Nigel here and my General Manager, Warwick Zander, here to help me with anything that I'm not aware of. Thank you.
Thank you, Billy. Are there any questions? Councillor Foreman.
Kia ora. It's more of a curiosity. How is the team ensuring that this type of error isn't going to happen again? Did we learn anything from this?
Through the chair, I got involved in this and we reviewed our building consent process and our planning processes as well to see if there's any ways that we can try and avoid this from happening again. So it is taken into consideration.
Councillor Taylor.
Just by way of clarity, the land that is now the stormwater reserve belonged to the developer initially and was vested in council. Okay, so I think it's really important that we draw a complete distinction between this and any other reserve encroachments that are occurring around the district, because this is not the same as any other reserve encroachment that we're dealing with separately to this item. I just think that needs to be made clear for those that are watching online. Thank you.
Councillor Murch.
Yeah, thanks, Billy V. I just had a question around the financial considerations. It's noted here that the developer is to cover all costs, including staff time, associated with this proposal, and the estimate there for the cost is to be in the vicinity of 25,000 plus GST. I just want to know, is that agreement in writing with the developer, and if the costs exceed 25,000 plus GST, will the developer still cover those costs?
So I was the one that was working directly with the consultant that was engaged to try and resolve this for the developer, and it is in writing. It's in email writing, but if there are concerns around that, I'm happy to enter into a more formalised contract, but generally speaking, this is the best way to be able to resolve it without us enforcing them to rectify the retaining wall, which would have more significant cost to them.
Yeah, no, I support that. I understand that and I support that. I think my question was just around the developer covering costs of your time and whether he would cover further costs if exceeded the 25,000 that's written here in the paper.
That's the intention, yes, through the wording of the emails, yes.
No further questions. We've got a recommendation on the screen, and it's But can you just clarify for it, it's option 4 we're looking at. Is that the recommendation?
Through the chair, yes it is.
Can we have a mover for that? Councillor Murch and a seconder? Councillor Foreman. Now we enter into debate. Are there any issues we need to debate on that? If not, I'll put it to the vote. We do have a mover and a seconder. Option 4 we're looking at there. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. We're now moving to we're now moving to 5.5 on the agenda. New public road names, Karakramia stages 4, 5 and 6. Louise, welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Your Worship and councillors. For those who don't know me, I'm Louise Wood. I'm a senior resource consents planner here at council. Have been here for a very long time. And I process a number of subdivisions. Our team does all across the Taupō district. And a subdivision that occurred a while ago. Well, do we all know the Kokomia village where the new supermarket is and things? Yep. So those first few stages have already been implemented. And when we do a subdivision, obviously there's new roads that go in. And new roads need names. And they need names because the new sections need to be addressed. So that's what we need approval from council for, is for those new names. And there's a process to go through. Normally this would go to the new regulatory committee, but obviously there's a time constraint here because they've applied for their new titles, so they need to be addressed. So hence me bringing it to this meeting today. So there's 2 new road names, Paki Street and Marino Street. The developers have consulted with Ngā Hapu o Tauhara and also the emergency services, St John's and the police and fire and emergency. The reason why they consult with emergency services is to make sure that there's no duplications in the district that might cause confusion if there was an emergency to attend. All of those parties have given their approval. In fact, the actual names have come from Ngā Hapu o Tauhara back in 2021. They actually gave a big list of potential road names when the first stages of the subdivision went in, which have already got houses on them now. I think that's covered it. Open to questions.
Thank you, Louise. Other questions from the members for Louise? If there's not, there is a recommendation on the screen there. We need a mover for that. Councillor Cameron. Can we have a seconder? Councillor Rankin, thank you for that. Now open for debate. Councillor Campbell.
Through the chair, yes. Look, I saved this for one of the items which was I expected was going to be less controversial, but I feel this is the right time to bring it since it is in the body of the report. Now, at the prompting of a member of the public who raised this issue following correspondence with the Minister of Local Government, Simon Watts, and I wish to question a recurring statement that appears under the Māori engagement section of nearly every council report. Taupō District Council is committed to meeting its statutory Te Tiriti Waitangi obligations and acknowledges partnership as the basis of Te Tiriti. Now, I understand this wording was introduced around the time of the 2021 long-term plan. My concern is that this statement makes 2 assertions which are not matters of statutory fact, but rather political interpretation. The first, that the partnership model is the basis of the treaty. The second, that the inference that Te Tiriti, the Māori text, is to be given primacy over the Treaty of Waitangi, the English version, which is the only one referred to in the Local Government Act. So whilst the council, I'm nearly finished, whilst the council may have some obligations under the treaty, and particularly where they relate to
Your Worship, I
Crown
need to interrupt.
settlements.
Point of order here. This agenda item is to do very simply with two street names. It has nothing to do with an overarching conversation about treaty obligations. That is a completely separate subject. My point is that the commentary being made is not relevant to the street names that we're being asked to vote on. I ask you to rule on that, please.
Through the chair, can I just respond briefly?
Councillor Campbell, I just need to get some advice on this. I'm too fresh into the game to make a call on it. So just, can we have a 2 minutes break here? Councillor Campbell, it would appear that the issue that you've raised is not part of this agenda item here.
Well, through the chair, it's in the body of the report. That's why I chose this opportunity to raise it. And I was actually nearly finished with a question. If you give me 30 seconds.
Can we just hang on there a minute, Councillor Campbell?
Through you, Your Worship, what the member is talking about is process on decision making. The decision we're being asked to make is the substance, which is the street names. A challenge to process how the decision making is presented to us is a completely separate issue. He is wishing to debate process, not substance. The decision is substance. That would be my submission to you.
Well, thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Campbell, unfortunately for you, I have to sustain the objection by Deputy Mayor Taylor. Is there anything further you want to say on the subject that is on the subject?
Well, through the chair, I mean, I'll just comment that the only reason I bring it up here is because we don't have a part of the council meetings to bring up issues like this unless I submitted an official notice of motion, which is a lot of palaver for something which can take 30 seconds to ask, really. I'm really just challenging these statements which are in virtually every council paper, and I mean, I want it to be reviewed. I want that statement. I want this to be reviewed. That's my request.
Councillor Campbell, I think there is, reading the room, there is a format that you can follow to discuss this, and it's not appropriate in this context that we're talking here today.
Your Worship, could I just ask what would be the correct format? What is the format to challenge to ask this question?
Well, Councillor Campbell, you did mention it yourself before.
A notice of motion?
Yes.
To ask a question?
Well, on a subject that's not on the agenda. Councillor.
Okay. I'll take that on board, Your Worship.
Any other comments on this issue at all?
I just have a comment through the chair. It's me. I just note that there was a comment that the names were gifted by Ngā Hapu o Tauhara back in 2021. I guess I just want to know, that was 4 years ago. Are the Hapu aware now that those names are being put forward and selected, or was this just purely based on the paper that was provided 4 years ago?
So perhaps through the chair, if Louise could perhaps come further forward for just that point of clarification. You are in debate, but yeah, we can clarify.
That's okay, through the chair. Yes, so the subdivision or big multi-stage subdivisions like this happen in with different subdivision consents that happen over different timeframes, and then they get constructed and implemented following at different timelines. And so when the developer went and consulted with Ngā Hapu o Tauhara in 2021, it was for the whole foreseeable development. Yeah. Does that make sense? That's okay.
Thank you for that. We're in debate. Are there any other questions or issues anyone wants to raise? That being the case, I'll put it to the vote. We have the recommendation there for the two street names on the screen. All those in favour, please say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Now moving on to item 5.6, results of current year forecasting for October 2025. Sarah Matthews, please, to speak to us.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just wanted to, look, I think there's a bit of detail in this paper, but I wanted to recognise that this has been a result of several years' work to get to the stage where we can provide you with this kind of detail and transparent forecasting. I'm really proud of the team and what they've done here today. I do think the paper does speak for itself and goes into detail on those projects where the team thought more detail would be required to make the decision. That being said, I did just want to mention that this isn't a reflection on our budgeting. It's a reflection of the changing environment, and I know reforecasting is very supported by our Chair of Risk and Assurance, and in fact probably even more frequently than what we're proposing to do it now. But I did want to recognise that this is a big change for the team, and a team who are under incredible pressure with all the other things going on in local government. So wanted to recognise the team there, and then also the fact that this is an improvement journey. We're not finished, and I imagine over the next few years we'll refine this, and we'll work with you on what you require and what information you would like to see from us. So just a recognition there. If we haven't quite hit the mark, they're totally happy to receive feedback on that too. But I'm pretty stoked that we can present you with these budget changes and present the community with a transparent look at where we're at from the year to date.
Thank you, Sarah. Are there any questions of Sarah? Councillor Greenslade.
Thank you, Your Worship. I don't think you can answer the question, but I'm going to ask it anyway, Sarah. I'm just asking about the Motuopa plant upgrade, gone up $500,000. Money's being transferred from other projects. Which projects? And that seems an awful lot of money to go up on a project which is not actually all that expensive.
Yeah, through the chair, there's actually the perfect man to answer that question behind you. But I did just want to make reference to the point that part of our forecasting rules and our funding rules require us to transfer projects from a like for like. So it would have come from other waters projects. So the intent of not just the intent of the money that's been put aside in the planning process is continued, but also the funding is the correct source of funding. Because if you transferred from, transportation, for example, that's a different source of rate funding because not everybody has water. So I just wanted to note that before Tony answers the detailed question that I have no idea about.
Tony.
Through the Chair, thank you, Sarah. You're quite right there. There is ring fencing, which is a good thing. And in relation to the plant there, no different from some of our other plants that we have constructed and are still investigating. This contract was put together and some of the design work was done over 6 years ago now. And when we get to locations and sites, we do find that there are some certain issues. Motuopa, we've got issues with soil and geotech, and hence why some of those costs have gone up, as well as obviously contractor rates and material items.
Thank you, Tony. Councillor Campbell.
Oh, I just wanted to follow up, Your Worship. Are you able to tell us where the money actually came from, the other projects? Who were the projects who did so well that we were able to take money and transfer it?
Yeah, through the chair. Look, we've got, we move money around within some of those actual new treatment plants as part of our drinking water standard compliance. So this is not an accounting term, but there's overs and unders. And certainly we move around in those ones. I can't give you the specifics, but I know that we've got 4 plants that we're doing and we're moving money around between those.
You happy with that, Councillor Campbell?
Yes, just 2 questions. One you probably can answer, one you might not be able to. Broadlands Road sort of blossomed into something bigger than it was originally expected. I was just wondering, repeated pavement failures, I mean, I know this is not unheard of, but is that because it was poorly constructed in the first place?
Through the chair, I will defer to my colleague, but could you explain further where you are referring to?
I saw it in there somewhere. Broadlands Road. I don't know now. I can't find it. We gave it a heap of extra money for some, and it was because there were repeated pavement failures found. I can't find it now.
Yep, through the chair. What we've done is with Broadlands Road, we're doing a bit of rehab works. We're doing some drainage works, and we've extended some of the planned works that were there to improve some of that carriageway. So you'll see quite a bit of work happening up there.
No, my question, I was just wondering, is it to do with the original construction of the road? Because I know back in the day, a lot of roads were built not very well.
Under item 2D, it says that to complete Broadlands Road's improvements, widening and renewals, the pavement rehabilitation comes under E, not under D.
That doesn't actually answer my question. Well, I'll move on to the next question anyway. You mentioned consultant and professional fees somewhere in there was less than you expected, I think that was one of the savings. So does that mean that these figures council-wide for the financial year are readily able to be examined? It's just that I've had clues from a 2023 Taxpayers Union report, unsubstantiated by me, but that we might be spending a lot more on consultant and professional fees than other councils.
So through the chair, that was to do with the timing of work being anticipated during the long-term plan process during this year. Given the projects that have been proposed to move out and they're referenced there under that item, it meant that we haven't required that work. If that work was being done and the timing was the same, then that budget would have had to remain. So it was just the timing of the work moved out, and essentially that would put that work requiring to be done in another year, so you'll need to bring that funding back. Just a comment.
Oh no, okay. No, so the blunt question is, if I submitted a question to how much did this council spend on consultants and professional fees in the financial year of 24-25, I can get that answer?
Through the chair, we do report some of that detail in the annual report, but as you can appreciate, when you're doing capital projects, that often includes consultants and contractors as well. It's really hard to separate, and often suppliers are several purpose supplier. So you've got a supplier who might do evaluation for us, as well as roading maintenance and waters renewals. So they're often multi-part suppliers. So they will provide some consultancy with that, but not necessarily their whole bill. So it's really hard to provide that. But just so you know, through the local government systems improvement bill, it is it planned that we will have to in the future do a higher level of disclosures on contractors and consultants. So we will have to do some level of system redesign to be able to provide that detail to the public. So we're not sure yet, because the detail to that bill, further detail to that bill hasn't been provided, but in the future I would expect that there'll be some level of disclosure above what we've got now, and that just simply comes down to the interest you're talking about, the public interest. So.
Oh, that's good. That's good to hear. Just, do you have any idea of the timing, most optimistically speaking, that sort of thing might start to have to happen?
Yeah, through the chair, I believe it's 2027, and Julie did just mouth 2027 as well. It's really hard because there's so many changes going on at once, and the team are trying to manage all these, and we've got a work program to trying to schedule, the timing of all of these changes, which involve finance, IT, and systems. So systems and process. So yeah, there's quite a lot going on, as I referenced earlier.
Thank you for that, Sarah. We have a recommendation on the screen for us now. I'd like a mover for that. Councillor Campbell, and a seconder, Councillor Taylor. Cameron, sorry. Sorry for that omission. We'll now move into debate. Councillor Cameron.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship, through the chair, through you. Just recognising that this is a ton of work. As a fellow project manager, I certainly appreciate all the effort that's gone into reporting on this. And also from a project management perspective, this will create efficiencies. There'll never be a cheaper time to build and carry out capital expenditure. So I'm very much in favour of forecasting and bringing budgets forward as and when required. In fact, in the private sector, if this was the train of thought that we were only going to forecast twice a year, we'd be asking our CEO why. So very much in favour of the forecasting. I really enjoyed the transparency of the detail that's in there too, and I appreciate that we can ask further questions for clarity. So thank you very much for all the work, and I look forward to more to come.
Councillor Campbell.
Yeah, through the chair. I just note that some of the substituted budgets were stated as coming from the roundabout projects, Taharipa Road. I'd just like to assert from my own professional experience and things like those that much greater savings can eventuate if doing value for money and good enough infrastructure becomes a number one priority at this council. And that includes, and I'm thinking more of the water projects than anything else, do we really have to do it, and what happens if we don't? Because just because some legislation or other says we should, doesn't always mean we absolutely have to.
Is there anyone want to answer that? I think it's mandated by the government. Is that the answer, Councillor Taylor?
Well, at the risk of starting an argument, we signed an oath that we would abide by the legislation which governs the reason we sit round the table. It would be hypocritical to sign that and then go, actually, we'll pick and choose which parts of the law we're going to abide by or not. So, sorry, the answer for me is a no to that. Coming back to the paper, I want to thank the team for this. It goes a long way towards addressing, what do we call them? Carry forwards. And this is a really large step in the direction of addressing that. So I think it's a good move.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Councillor Campbell.
Well, yeah, through the chair, just to respond briefly to Councillor Taylor's statement there. The greater part of our oath, I think we should all agree, is that we are to be acting in the best interests of constituents, and I don't think by racking up unnecessary debt is very much in their interest.
Are there any other issues for the debate that anyone wants to put forward? Okay, we have a mover and a seconder. I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Moving on to item 5.7, Taupō District Council Performance Report, and I'll invite the Chief Executive, Julie Gardine, to speak to that.
Kia ora koutou, Your Worship and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to this report. Just a couple of things I wish to highlight before we move on. I'd just like to congratulate our IT team. You'll see on the agenda on page 73, winning the Algam Award for the fit out for this building. So congratulations to them. I know it was a big piece of work. I'd also perhaps just like to acknowledge the reforecasting. That has been a big piece of work in the organisation, and at times has been quite challenging to be able to pull that together. So thank you for all the work that's gone into that. Of course, we have received numerous Christmas presents from government in terms of bills and changes in terms of council direction, or that will have an impact on council direction. So overall, my summary at the front there around the government policy update has been quite a focus over the last few weeks, and will continue to be for you next year. As per normal, we've got this report in multiple parts. First section, the exec team can answer, and then I welcome Joe to the table this time to be able to talk through the portfolio update too. So perhaps if I may, Your Worship, any questions of clarification on the first part before we move into the portfolio section?
Are there any questions of the Chief Executive? If not, we'll move on to Joe. Welcome. The floor is yours.
I did have a little question, just looking at the report on the Taupō Airport and the finance period for, I guess it's year ended, 31 October, is it? Or is it just month? That the maintenance costs associated with the terminal ventilation and air conditioning and car parking system are higher than expected, considering the systems are only 3 years old. Is there any further explanation to that? I'm interested to know if that was due to installation or shortcomings somewhere. Can we recoup some of that from the installer, for example?
Yeah, I do understand that there were some challenges on the initial install of the system, and that's resulted in a larger system having to be installed into the airport. So I imagine that that's creating increased maintenance costs as well.
So it was under-engineered, essentially?
Correct.
Yes. Is there any recourse for that?
That's ongoing. Yes.
Thank you.
Is there any further questions? If not, we'll move on to Joe. Welcome.
Kia ora koutou, ko Joe Walton, tōku ingoa, he kai whakahaere ho takaho. I'm Joe Walton. I am a program manager in the project management office, just here substituting for Panel. Here to just briefly cover some points in the portfolio update. As Julie mentioned, the deluge of reforms from central government has impacted on a few of the projects, particularly I would say the water services delivery plan implementation has slowed down. It's just so much to kind of understand. So we're just kind of going through assessing how the different priorities fit together and what is the most critical tasks to do first. So just kind of a planning how we're going to achieve all the things that we need to set out in there, given the new information that's all come out. The Turangi-Tongariro Park seal is done. Councillor Greenslade, Jason informs me, and yes, exactly. So that one, yay, is completed. So we finally got the rain eased off, and that work was able to be finished off. The other changes, you'll note there's a slight increase in the scope on the Mangakino lakefront. That's primarily due to LINZ requiring a signed land use agreement. So we're just a slight delay there just as we work through that, but it was sort of anticipated that that might be an eventuality. A Mori Kuroto slip, there has been a slight change. It's not necessarily that anything has gotten worse, it's just acknowledging that there is a few complications that they're working through in that process, but still anticipating to have the design work completed early in the new year, and then from there we'll be able to move into that construction.
Can I just ask a question on that,
Sure,
Joe,
sure.
before we go any further? Thank you. I just want to know what comms there are around for the community on that.
Yeah, I think the plan is we're waiting till we get the design a little bit just come back, and then we'll have a clearer idea of what needs to be done, and then we'll be proceeding into that engagement, because there is some properties that are close to where that slip is, so just kind of working closely with those stakeholders. That's the plan. Just want to draw your attention to the wastewater project. So I'm not sure, some of you might be aware, but the wastewater standards finally were released in the last few weeks. So that's been something that has been quite long awaited, and there is a lot of reading to work through, and the team is basically just dissecting that, understanding it, and figuring out what it's going to mean for our long-term wastewater strategies, particularly at the Taupō plant, but also across the district. So that's going to be quite a focus for discussions as we go into the new year. But that's that project is still not on hold, but definitely in a where are we heading with that work, given all the new information. That's all the things that I wanted to cover, just in changes, but if there's any questions, happy to try to answer them or direct to some of my colleagues.
Joe, you obviously, oh no,
Oh,
Councillor
sorry,
Greenslade.
Ian, I'm just looking at my notes, Your Worship. I've got notes here, that's why I need to grab them and look at them and see what I'd thought about one other day. Again, it's about comms and the comms around the Hātepe station as well too. Is there comms going out to that community, keeping in mind that most of that community is only really in residence sort of over the summer. It would be nice to have something happening around that.
Okay, I will pass that along to the team.
Are there any other questions of Joe? Joe, thank you for that. The motion is on the screen there that we receive the report for November. Someone like to move that? Councillor Greenslade, is there a seconder? Councillor Merch, thank you. I'm just taking a breather. All those in favour of
through the chair. The debate time, isn't it?
Well, then,
did I miss something? You first did it, the second did it. Now it's time to talk. Oh no, well, I've got something to say about it.
Yeah, so Councillor, it's because we're receiving the report, but I'll allow you to.
Oh, thank you, Your Worship. Look, it's only brief. But as per last month, I just want to highlight the informational nature of this report, these reporting mechanisms. And it is that, but it is by design quite limited in terms of elected members' ability to influence the course of events. Many of these projects being reported on involve quite a lot of money, and I, for one, am not satisfied that each one of them gets properly challenged or scrutinised with the burning question, do we really need to have them? And what happens if we don't? That's all I'll say on that point. Second thing, look, just want to mention to the newly elects, one of those items was the crushed concrete landfill. Then about the asbestos, just mention that when the asbestos contamination was first brought to our attention last year, I think it was last year, the scale of the problem was quite underappreciated and the costs were originally estimated at a few $100,000 only. I did a rough calc at the time based on worst case scenario, which came to about 2 million, which was actually much closer to what it ended up being. So not really an opportunity to say, I told you so, because I didn't know. I was just stabbing in the dark. But that things like this can unfold in unforeseen directions, and also a measure of damage control, particularly to do with public perceptions.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell. Because we're just receiving the report, I'm informed that we don't normally go into debate because it's just been received. We have a mover and a seconder, so I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye. Aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 5.10, 5.9, allocation of Taupō District Council's governance remuneration pool.
Good afternoon again, Your Worship and Councillors. It is my turn to present this report. So for those that are new to local government, it does represent a rather unusual situation. You are allocated a pool of funding from the Remuneration Authority, and it is for Council to obviously to debate the allocation of that remuneration, with the exception of the role of the Mayor. this recommendation or the options that are laid out in this report reflect the conversations that you've had so far on your committee structure, and they would be the conversations that you've had around the formation of the Waters Committee, the Risk and Assurance Committee, the Regulatory Committee, etc. Just want to really again highlight that what His Worship mentioned at the beginning of the meeting was around the representative groups, and that you have the opportunity, of course, once you've heard from the communities in February next year, to revisit this if needed. There is options that are set out within this report, and there is a short summary of what we believe are the roles of additional responsibility that you may wish to recognise. Overall, the report recommends option B, and those are outlined within the spreadsheets attached to this paper. I'm happy to answer questions or clarification, but I also acknowledge the work that has gone in by our governance team, particularly Shaney, who's in the room with us this afternoon too. Thank you.
Thank you, Julie. We have a recommendation on the screen there. Can we have a mover? Yep. Councillor Delatorre. And a seconder, Councillor Foreman. We now move into debate. Are there any issues? Councillor Greenslade.
Yes, Your Worship. Sadly today I'm going to vote against all of these options. I've heard what's been said by yourself and by the CEO, and I'm very disappointed in Council not consulting with the district over the committees prior to this triennium. Council broke up in the last triennium on the 31st of July. We didn't convene back until the 23rd of October, and that was plenty of opportunity for Council to have consulted with our communities and found out what they wanted going forward in terms of representation. In the Turangi ward, November 2022, the Local Government Commission put forward a report, disestablished the Turangi Community Board and one councillor, put in place a co-governance committee which works very closely with Taupo District Council and the wider district, which has the Tongariro representative group. And it wasn't until I came back and was re-elected to this position at the beginning of October that I discovered that Council had intended to disestablish this committee and replace it with a community forum. I think the timing was appalling. I think that could have been handled a whole lot better, and I feel that the consultation that is taking place is being rushed. I've got no idea what that consultation looks like. The consultation that took place in November 22 went on for a very long period of time, and there were many submissions to it. So I don't agree with the council committees as they stand, and sadly I'm not against council receiving remuneration. Absolutely not. Of course they should receive remuneration, but I disagree with the council's structure and the committee, so I'll be voting against all of the options.
Are there any other comments or questions? Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Your Worship. I would just like to support Councillor Greenslade on that. I agree with everything she said, and I'm in the same position as her. I will be choosing not to vote.
Councillor Campbell.
Oh yeah, look, I just want to acknowledge Councillor Greenslade and Woodward for certainly bring this up to our attention in this item here, because it is related, arguably a tangential one, but if anything it will serve to highlight the discussion, I think, so that's beneficial. But I do have a little bit of a spiel to say, if I might, on the remuneration question. It's important to clarify that the only difference between the three options is the share of the pool allocated to the Deputy Mayor. Option A sets the Deputy's salary at 1.68, the base councillor rate. Option B represents the current situation, status quo at 1.6. And option C, which I support, proposes 1.4 times. Now, while this may sound minor, the difference is close to $10,000, as opposed to option A, that is, because we are And because we are bound by a fixed remuneration pool, any increase for one person must come at the expense of the rest. What raises most concern for me is that this deputy mayor weighting has already increased significantly. As recently as 2022, it was set at 1.2 times the base rate of a councillor. That means option A, which I gather is not the recommendation, but option A represents a 40% pay increase in just 3 years, from 48,000 in 2022 to a proposed 67. That's option A. The significant increase that happened at the beginning of last term was not transparently explained to us new elected members of 2022, and it still has not been explained this time either. I must acknowledge that during the previous term, the deputy was required to step up frequently to the mayor's health-related absences, and he did a sterling job in doing that. But we are no longer in that situation. So I had to ask, why should the deputy mayor role continue to warrant such a high weighting? And from what I understand, the position's formal responsibilities are limited to filling in for the mayor and chairing the Water Services Committee when required as a deputy chairperson for that committee. Now, that may justify a modest differential, but certainly not one of the highest in the country, and based on a review I did of 2024-25 remuneration data from councils across the country, around 75% of other councils allocate a lower weighting to their deputy mayor role than we are being, well, what option A would represent anyway. Option B is slightly different. To sum up, I believe option C, 1.4 times the base rate of a councillor, is a fair and principled stance. It still reflects a substantial 14,000 premium above the 2022 figure, and recognises the deputy's additional responsibilities, but without overstating it at the expense of the wider team, and thereby also minimising our own contributions. Finally, while this debate is about remuneration, I'd be remiss not to raise a broader concern, and that is the steady increase in influence which has been granted to the deputy position than the rest of us. Remuneration won't fix that, but getting these numbers right, I believe, will be a step forward restoring that balance. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Campbell.
Through the Chair, can I just clarify, are we seeking questions of clarification or are we in debate at this stage? Oh, okay. May I speak?
Please proceed.
Thank you. I'd like to thank Sandra for bringing us back to the discussion on rep groups, and I'm glad we took the time to do that, actually, noting that we weren't sworn in until the 31st of October and we've been in an induction period ever since. These discussions couldn't have happened until after that point. And once again, thank you to our speakers at the public forum for bringing your concerns to us. Like I said, I'm quite pleased that we've decided to take the approach that we're going to consult with the public on these rep groups to enhance the functions of the groups and to tailor them to the communities that they're intended to serve. We certainly don't want to hold up any council business going forward, so I do see it as an important thing to do to move forward with these committees and their structures, and I'm more than happy to revisit once we've completed the consultation on the rep groups and decide a way forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Rankin.
I think this is, whether it should be or not, it's a really uncomfortable conversation. And the objections I had can't help but affect people personally, and I feel bad about that. And that's the deputy's role, because we've never ever paid a deputy before, and I cannot understand when we are paying a considerable amount to an independent chair why can't we make one of our people the person who's going to be the deputy chair? Why can't they be the chair? If this is the situation, why are we doing this? I find it It's just wrong, and I don't know why we'd be covering for somebody that's opting out over 3 years. So we've got to have we don't know who's going to be elected next time. We don't know what we're doing in that situation. I think we should have been brave enough to perhaps give the chairman's role to one of our own people. And I feel really uncomfortable about talking about the deputy's role, but I too do not understand why such a massive increase would be warranted. You were voted in as the mayor. That's what the people of this district want. They don't want a substitute. They want you to do the job. And the only reason I can think for such a massive increase is that you don't intend to. And I know that's not true. So why are we doing this? It just doesn't make sense to me. And I feel very uncomfortable talking about it. I think we all do. And it is nothing personal, but I'm sorry, I don't get it.
Is there anyone else wish to comment on this?
Yes, thank you.
Councillor Woodward.
Yes, I'd just like to sort of speak to what Christine was saying there. It isn't the most comfortable chat, but, and we all know this, it's not about the money. We know we're doing this because we're passionate about the people, we're passionate about the place that we live in. It's not about, oh, he's getting more than we are. It's not about that. It's about honouring the fact that some of us have other roles that we haven't yet established, and I don't think that we should be making this commitment right now when we haven't established all of our committees. And it is quite a jump for the deputy. I totally respect how much work he does. He does a great job. He does have a big role, but the rest of us councillors do as well, particularly our ward councillors. We have quite a lot of other issues that we have to deal with that perhaps the Taupō district councillors don't.
Through the
Councillor
Chair.
Cameron.
I'd just like to point out that Taupō district councillors are Taupō ward councillors as well, and there hasn't ever been a Taupō ward representative group. So I am very much looking forward to this discussion, because we do need to be able to service the Taupō ward rep groups as well.
Councillor Rankin, are you still?
Oh.
Okay. Councillor Westerman, please.
Chair, look, I think it's actually quite healthy that we can sit around a room, and it just proves that some of those people who say, well, look, we never discuss anything, we just take it all on board as given to us, we don't. We often sit here having some robust and sometimes embarrassing, sometimes hurtful conversations, and you know, this is a good process to go through. So I think we go through the process, we go to a vote, and if it swings one way or the other, well, so be it. The majority has spoken.
Thank you for that, Councillor Westerman. Councillor Taylor.
Just one question of clarification just from Councillor Rankin. Is the deputy of the committees that you're talking about? Because if you're talking about the Waters Committee, my understanding is that the local government funding agency
I'm not talking
has
about
pushed
the
that
Waters.
way.
I'm talking about Councillor Leonard's deputy role with risk and assurance.
Right, okay.
If there's no further debate required, we have a mover, Councillor Delator. We have a second to Councillor Foreman. So we're looking at option B. So I'll put it to the vote. All those in favour say aye.
Just through your worship, perhaps just for the purpose of the minutes, it would be good for show of hands, just so that we can count those, please.
Okay, and those against? I'm the chairman, I'm sitting here in the middle saying nothing.
You get a vote as well, so you're voting for it.
I'm abstaining.
Oh, you're abstaining. Okay.
you just read out the results, I think, the numbers?
So 1, 2, 3. So 8 for.
Yeah.
4
And
against if one abstain.
So the motion is sustained. Carried, sorry. So thank you for that. I realise there'll be some people unhappy about that. Moving on to item 5.10, adoption of the meeting schedule for 2026. Invite Karen Watts to speak to the members.
Kia ora koutou, thank you. So this is something that will come to you at the end of each year to look ahead to the following one. So just pointing out that obviously there's been a couple of changes already, and that we're not establishing the Community Grant Distribution Committee while the rep group question is sort of remaining. So I'll take that out. And it was just a point with regards to the Turangi Co-Governance Committee. The 2 dates that have been set aside in February was for the Reserve Management Plan hearing, and just to note that it won't necessarily be requiring both of those days. It's just that that's what we've put in there for now, and it just really depends on how many submitters actually request to be heard. But other than that, happy to take any questions or make any changes on the fly if we need to.
Are there any questions of Karen? If not,
through the chair.
Please, Councillor Campbell, please go ahead.
Well, it's a question, but I don't think Karen will be able to answer it, but you might, Your Worship. I want to request that all workshop and committee meetings, including those off-site, with the exception of those deemed public excluded, be audio-visual recorded and uploaded to the council YouTube site. Nowadays, it's as simple as putting a phone on a tripod, so there really should be no excuse. And because so many of these meetings happen during working hours, it will enable the public to much more easily be able to see the council working for them. Not only that, but any unsavoury incidents which occur at these events, and I am aware of 1 or 2, can be recorded for the public to decide for themselves and not just be subject to hearsay as has happened in the past. So that's my request, Your Worship.
It's noted, Councillor. Are there any other issues or questions anyone has? Councillor Greensland.
Yes, Your Worship. I'd just like to support Councillor Campbell on that, because previously the only things that have been recorded of those committee meetings that took place in this room, and such a huge district that we've got, certainly support that, and I'd like an answer actually from staff as to know whether that is going to happen.
Councillor Wood.
Thank you, Your Worship. Yes, I'd also just like to support Councillor Duncan's words there, and to make sure that these do get recorded and they are posted regularly by the council.
Councillor Rankin.
I absolutely agree. We did it in we didn't actually. One of the community reps recorded it every time and put it on that association's site, and everyone watched it. And I agree, for exactly the same reasons. Anything in doubt, it's there, it's recorded, it's appropriate.
Through the chair, I'm also not opposed. I support live streaming, actually, if we can, and then loading later as appropriate. I guess there will be situations where the public are included, so we'll have to obviously navigate that. But broadly speaking, I'm very much in favour of live streaming also.
Does anyone else have a view on this? And I assume the management believe it's possible.
Yeah, look, through you, Your Worship, I guess the topic of the paper is not on the recording of the workshops, but it's certainly our intention to move towards live streaming and making these publicly available. The issue previously was about us not being in this building, so we didn't have the technology. Now we're in here. That is absolutely our intention, but it's not necessarily the topic for today's conversation.
Nevertheless, we've got that covered off. I hope it's...
Can I just The only thing I would say is, you know, while we're here, it's easier. It's not necessarily something we can do in every venue we can do when we move around the district. So that's what we're working towards. Yeah. Yeah.
As Christine was saying through the chair, it's as simple as putting up a tripod with a camera phone on it. Technology is pretty simple in that respect these days.
Councillor Woodward, that's noted. You seem to be very adept at that from what I've seen. Well done. Are there any other comments? If not, we've got a recommendation displayed on the screen. Can we have a mover for that? Councillor Cameron. And a seconder, please. Councillor Murch. We should move into debate now if they feel there's any debate needed. We've probably covered most of it. If not, then we'll put it to the vote. We do have a mover and a seconder. So all those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. We're on to item 511. Council engagements, February 2026, appointments and training and conference opportunities. Once again, we invite Karen Watts to speak to the members.
Kia ora anō. So we've just listed the February engagements that we're aware of, and again just mentioning about the Turangi Co-Governance Committee hearing that it may not be required for all of that time, and then just appointing some of our elected members to project steering groups. So we just need your approval for that. Thank you.
So we have a recommendation on the screen there. Can we have a mover for that? Councillor Foreman. And a seconder. Councillor Taylor. Now move into debate on that. Councillor Greensley.
Thank you, Worship. The only thing I'd like to say is it would be really good to have those submissions for the Turangi Reserves Management Plan uploaded to the YouTube for the very reason that Councillor Duncan Campbell talked about. One of the things, of course, we do get a lot of complaints about is that people who are very interested can't attend during the day. So that would be really good to be able to have that.
Are there any other issues of comments or debate on this subject? If not...
Yes.
Oh, Councillor Woodward, sorry.
Sorry. Just reading on that, for where it's got under appointments, project steering groups, and the two, the landfill consent and the Owen Delaney Park. I'm just wondering where the Mangakino Lakefront project is.
Through the chair, that project is entering into construction phase, and the idea is that I'll be engaging directly with you to provide you regular updates on that project.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments? If not, I'll put it to the vote. As displayed on the screen there. All those in favour say aye. Contrary, no. Carried. Thank you everyone for that. We now move into the confidential items from which the public are excluded. Thank you for your attendance here today and the submissions you made. We'll just take a 5 or 10 minute break.
Just need a mover and seconder to go into confidence.
So we have to, we have to just, I've got a bit out of order here. We've got to have a mover and a seconder to go into, moved by Christine Rankin, seconded by Kylie Leonard. All those in favour, please say aye.